Unique origin, the Sabbath, good news of belonging. The Sabbath is a unique covenant sign, first of all, because it is the first sign given by God to reveal his desire to fellowship with his creatures. The day tells us that God created human beings to live not in mystical solitude, but in the joy of his fellowship. As explained in Hebrews, God rested on the seventh day that he might invite his people to enter it, God's rest. Hebrews 4, verse 4 to 6. Karl Barth rightly calls God's rest at the conclusion of creation the covenant of the grace of God, because it invites man to rest with him, to participate in God's rest. By resting, Barth explains, God seriously accepted the world and man when he created them, associating himself with them in the fullest sense. Hence, the history of the covenant was really established in the event of the seventh day. The covenant is God's yes to his creatures, and the Sabbath is the time to listen again to this yes. As the symbol of God's initial invitation to mankind to fellowship with him, the Sabbath provides the starting point and the basis for all subsequent manifestations of divine grace. When the harmonious fellowship was interrupted by human disobedience, the immediate result was loneliness and separation from God. The Lord God sent him forth from the garden, Genesis 3 and 23, and Adam and Eve found themselves exiled from the direct fellowship with God. When Eden was lost, the Sabbath remained as the weekly reminder of the symbol of God's desire and plan to restore the broken relationship of fellowship and mutual belonging with his fallen creatures. Unique survival. The Sabbath is unique also because it has survived not only the fall, but also the flood, the Egyptian slavery, the Babylonian exile, the Roman persecution, the French and Russian temporary introduction of the 10-day week, blank day calendar proposals, interrupting the weekly cycle, antinomianism, and modern secularism. The day still stands for God's people as the symbol of God's gracious provision of salvation and belonging to God. The ancient prophets recognized the value of Sabbath keeping in maintaining allegiance to God. Ezekiel, for example, when he saw the danger of the total extinction of God's people as a result of the exile, appealed to them to remember their divine election by means of the distinguishing function of the Sabbath. Ezekiel 20, verse 12 to 21. Similarly, Isaiah presents the Sabbath as a symbol of belonging to the covenant, not only for the Jews, Isaiah 58, verse 13 and 14, but also for the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord. Unique function. The Sabbath is furthermore a unique symbol, covenant symbol, because it has helped believers throughout the ages to maintain their faith, their belonging, relationship with God. The regular observance of the Sabbath, as noted by Dennis J. McCarthy, was a medium which handed on knowledge of the covenant as a relationship and a doctrine. Akkad Ham underlines this vital function of the Sabbath in the history of Judaism, stating, "We can affirm without any exaggeration that the Sabbath has preserved the Jews more than the Jews have preserved the Sabbath." If the Sabbath had not restored to them the soul, renewing every week their spiritual life, they would have become so degraded by the depressing experiences of the work days that they would have descended to the last step of materialism and of moral and intellectual decadence. Decadence. Sabbath keeping has contributed to the survival not only of Judaism but of Christianity as well. The essence of a Christian life is a relationship with God. Such a relationship grows and becomes more meaningful, especially through the time and opportunities for worship, service, meditation, and fellowship provided by the Sabbath day. Consequently, a proper observance of God's holy day reflects a healthy relationship with God, while disregard for it bespeaks spiritual decline. This was true in ancient Israel. It is also true in modern Christianity. In a country like Italy, for example, where less than 10% of the Christian population attend church services on what they regard as their Lord's Day, Sabbath evening, or Sunday, there is the largest communist party of Western Europe. About 35% of the electorate vote for it. The relationship between the two can hardly be viewed as being merely a coincidence. In other Western European nations where church attendance is even lower than in Italy, secularism, atheism, anti-clericalism, immorality, and religious skepticism are rampant. It would be naive to attribute all the social and religious evils to the prevailing disregard for God's holy day. But by the same token, it failing disregard for God's holy day, but by the same token, it would be blindness to fail to see the tragic consequence resulting from the profanation of the Sabbath in society. In a speech delivered in November 13, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln emphasized this vital function of the Sabbath, saying, "As we keep or break the Sabbath day, we nobly save or mainly lose the last and best hope by which man arises." Puritans applied the name and the precepts of the Sabbath to Sunday. This does not detract from the fact that one of America's outstanding presidents recognized in the Sabbath precept the last best hope that can renew and elevate human beings. If this were true in Lincoln's day, is it not truer in our time, when so many isms, materialism, secularism, hedonism, atheism, capitalism, communism, evolutionism, liberalism are competing for human allegiance, when the tyranny of things enslaves many lives? Today, therefore, more than ever before, the Sabbath is needed to liberate human beings from the bondage to the many isms and to enable them to rediscover the peace of fellowship and belonging to God for which they were created. The Sabbath, good news of belonging.